Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear.
Fantastic. I just wanted to say good evening to everybody. It's a fantastic opportunity to be on a panel with such distinguished guests. Very thankful. Before I talk, I just wanted to add just one very small disclaimer that even though I am a licensed minister with the New Testament Church of God, my views are my views only. They don't represent the church or institution on a whole. There's a broad depth of different opinions within the organization. So I thought I would just add that to protect myself. It's a great opportunity. What I want to do is really just start. I've only got one slide. So this slide, I'm just waiting for the slide to come up. There's a slide which has an image of essentially this is the one. So basically what I've done is simply just based on my observations over the last 2 years, we can essentially extract from different viewpoints, 4 key viewpoints, which seem to be quite dominant, not only within the Black community, but within communities generally. And what I've tried to do is just give some insights into the various differences. So we've got anti-vaxxer. You probably heard the term anti-vaxxer. It's been bandied around in the media on an ongoing basis, but in a historic sense, anti-vaxxer is pretty much a group or sentiment of people that have historically always been opposed to vaccines, not just the COVID-19 vaccine. There's been some great scientific developments in the past with vaccines, and even when it comes to like polio or tetanus, there's always been a body of people that have always been antagonistic to vaccine science. So historically, when we're talking about anti-vaxxer, we're talking about people that generally are opposed to vaccine for some very complex reasons. I can't unpack that right now. Vaccine hesitancy, on the other hand, is obviously, and this is what I've found from my experience, is that it doesn't necessarily mean people that have always been opposed to vaccines. There's a lot of people I've spoken to who have taken vaccines, their kids have had the MMR jab, but the issue they have is with the COVID-19 vaccine for specific reasons. And some of those reasons can be political, they can be theological, they can be eschatological, ethical, medical, or even historic, as we've talked about the influences of the past. The third category talks about vaccine relevancy. Now, vaccine relevancy is generally the belief that the COVID vaccine has its place in the fight against COVID-19. But rather than seeing the vaccine as the silver bullet that's going to basically be the only solution, it's all about a portfolio approach to defending yourself against the COVID-19, which has obviously had devastating effects primarily within very specific demographics, such as the elderly, those elderly with morbidities, underlying issues, or even people of any age that still have very strong underlying issues, or people that have obesity because of the pressure it puts on the lungs, or even people that may have issues, asthma, where they've had a sort of tradition or a scientific history where they've had things that have actually impacted their breathing ability. So what vaccine relevancy is about, it's about saying that, yes, we absolutely believe that there was an absolute need to ring fence and protect those that are vulnerable, because those that are vulnerable needed to be protected. But at the same time, we also have to contextualize how relevant is the vaccine to other groups. And what vaccine relevancy does is look at the context. And, you know, we look at the context in terms of a lot of the coercion that's taking place, in terms of the scientific debate and freedom of choice, in terms of the political, economic, commercial factors that we cannot involve when we're talking about the policy of government policy, and also even natural immunity. These are all the things that sometimes impacts people ability to make a decision. So it's not always about just to do with what's happened in the past with Black people. Some people have very, very valid concerns based on data, based on science, which I will obviously go into. And then we've got pro-vaccine. So pro-vaccine is generally the belief that all people, or most people, from the great granddad who may be 100 years old all the way down to the 1-year-old baby, should all have the COVID-19 vaccine. Now, you'll probably laugh and say, what do you mean under 10s or under 12s are going to have the vaccine? Well, there's clinical trials taking place right now for the COVID vaccine, also to be applied to those who are under the age of 10. So really, what I am here to represent is really a body of belief called vaccine relevancy, where it's not about the vaccine in the sense that, you know, we absolutely understand that there are very specific vulnerable groups that need to be ring-fenced. And certainly the data bears that out. And also the data bears out very strongly that the vaccine has actually made a tremendous impact in terms of reducing hospitalizations and death within the groups that were very much prone to the very nasty side of the vaccine. But there are other questions that we need to factor in. How is it ethical to tell people that their jobs are on the line when people have had natural immunity, where they've had COVID, they've caught COVID, they've recovered, they've got the memory B cells and the memory T cells. And with so many studies that are coming out now, which are showing that natural immunity actually creates a more robust immunity than vaccine immunity. The studies are coming out. Israel, 500,000 people were involved in a study. The Israeli government, the health ministry, confirmed that natural immunity cannot be denied. And so there's a lot of questions that we have to consider. When we say to somebody, you must be vaccinated, what are we saying? Are we ignoring the fact that that person may have had natural immunity? Are we saying that the natural immunity shouldn't even be considered? And that's where vaccine relevancy comes in. It's basically saying that we had some assumptions about the vaccine and also about the virus back in December 2020. But as more and more data is coming through, as more and more studies are going into period science, the Lancet, the British Medical Journal, as more and more official studies are becoming more official that we can see, we have to ask the question, do we continue with a wooden view, or do we allow the data to actually dictate where the science takes us? So hopefully through the questions that may be asked, I'll be able to give a bit more insight into what vaccine relevancy is all about. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Les. That was absolutely succinct. You're well in time, 3 minutes in time. And I like the definition of anti-vaxxers. You would think from the media it's just a group that's just happened, but as you've rightly said, anti-vaxxers have always been about. But the media has a way of really kind of truncating things and putting things in a particular way that really distorts people's thinking. So thank you very much for that definition. Thank you, explanation.